Hello everyone and welcome to Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today we are very excited because we have Jacquelyn and Craig who adopted their son through our agency in 2017. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Wonderful. It's always nice for our audience members to hear directly from families who have been through the process just to gain better perspective because you've lived through it. So we appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So start from the beginning of what led you to Adoptions from the Heart, the idea of building your family, and what values about our agency particularly stood out to you.
We suffer from infertility, and we finally made a decision that adoption was the way we wanted to go. We had started with a different agency and had not had a very good experience. Not professional, definitely their classes were very disorganized. And so we actually were connected to a birth mother through a coworker of Craig's. And so that spiraled into us needing to find an agency, not only in Pennsylvania, but in Delaware. And so we were very unhappy with our current agency, so that kind of started us searching for a different one. And I have to say, the first phone call I made to Adoptions from the Heart was completely different. So professional. Ashley, who we worked with, who's I don't think is no longer here, but we love her absolutely. She was so knowledgeable on the phone and finally gave us this sense of like comfort that we were in the right hands. And so it kind of took off from there. So then we transferred all of our information and just started from scratch here at Adoptions from the Heart. Things were going smoothly, and we checked all the boxes on the checklist, which we love, and we did end up having a disrupted adoption.
That was they can't plan you for that, especially when you go that long in the adoption process. So that was rough. Sorry to interrupt too, but that was tough. So then we decided to step back from adoption after that. We tried more infertility, and then we decided that our hearts were still in adoption and that we wanted to go forward with adoption. And then that's when we went back to Adoptions from the Heart, they were awesome again for us. We went through the process.
And then it's kind of where we are right now with our son Benjamin, because if we hadn't had the first experience, I think our profile key wouldn't have been as open as it was. We wouldn't have been as open, and having that disruption, your journey kind of leads you to make different decisions the second time around, and it really did. And we were all in and completely open, and I don't think if we had this disruption, it would have been the same, and we wouldn't have been today. So it really, in hindsight, you're devastated, but then you're like, wow, it all led us to our son currently, and we're so grateful for him. Yeah.
Now, when you guys were planning for potential placement and you came to the agency and you went through all your education, at that point you had been open, I believe, to all racial backgrounds, right, of a child?
The first time around?
The second time. Yeah. Talk to us about that in terms of like what you envisioned potentially being placed with a child of a different race, and the steps you took to try to prepare for that as much as you could.
So we knew it was going to be a lot of work. That you can't get comfortable, that you always have to keep learning. And I think Craig and I were very open to that. There's a lot we need to learn, and especially the classes are so informative. And it's helpful to hear everything, but then when you're actually in it, it's so different. So I think just being open and knowing we had a lot of work to do, and we were very willing.
And I think a lot of the classes that we took with Adoptions from the Heart were eye-opening as well. Like, they actually prepare you for being a transracial family. Speaking when you have a birth mother of a different race than my wife and I, and talking about, this is what it's like for my son or my daughter to be in a transracial adoptive family. And then that was very educating and eye-opening too, to be aware of those things. So that when we went into our profile and said, I think we can do this and we are open to that, I remember that being a big help for me, making those decisions.
Yeah, and I think you're wonderful here because I don't think you ever take the adoptive parent's decision lightly. Like, you always make sure that we reflect on it and we're certain before. And I think the class has really pushed us to have really good conversations on the ride home afterwards, to be like, is this something that we are able to do? Is this something where, because you want to just leave here and be like one and done. It's really made you reflect. And I think that's what's very powerful about the way you handle your education, is that you're putting it on the couple to really, really make a hard decision and to talk to each other and make sure you're both on the same page and both willing.
Yeah. What was placement like for you guys in 2017? Just the overall experience, things you took away, things you want folks to know.
So we had redone everything over the summer because I was a teacher, and so we really we just barreled through and did so much that summer. And then we ended up asking to not have our profile live right away, because then it was into the school year, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, because we were open to emergency placement. I was like, we can't. I just started with this. Well, we got an email about Ben, and it was September 23rd we found out about Ben. He was medically complicated child in the NICU, and it was listed, but a lot of unknowns. And
But I remember us both saying, we're like, yes, yeah,
we want to be considered.
Yeah.
And I remember Ashley kept saying, are you sure? And we're like,
Like,
yes, we want to be
to think
considered. And
about
she
it.
did. She's like, take another day, talk to Craig, talk to each other. And then it was we couldn't think of anything else. It was just we kept going over the situation, and we're like, no, we're so ready. And again, I don't think if we had the experience before, things would have been different, but we were so open. We really were, and we were ready. And this time around, we didn't tell anyone, which was so different than the last time. Everyone knew the first time around. This second time, we didn't want anyone's opinion swaying or making us second guess what we had already decided as a married couple. And so we didn't tell anyone, and it was the hardest weekend ever, because I guess we found out about Ben on
Friday.
Thursday. It was a Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
We had talked to Ashley on Friday saying, yes, we're definite, we want to be considered, whatever will happen. You go all that weekend not knowing anything and not sure, and you're just praying and hoping, and but also so scared. And then it was Monday afternoon, she called me and said we were chosen. And
Tuesday we met Ben.
we met Ben on Tuesday afternoon in the NICU.
And that was a funny story, because
and then it was
it was at
called,
the NICU, and then we couldn't find a place to, they didn't have any place to actually sit down and do the paperwork. So we're signing all the adoption paperwork in the lobby of the hospital.
Yeah.
And then it was well, do you want to go up and meet your son?
Yeah.
And then the best moment was that the doctors, because there were so many unknowns with him, the doctors just kept rambling to us and telling us things, and we're not sure about this and everything, and we're standing there, and finally the doctor looks at me and goes, you just want to hold him, don't you? And I said, yes. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to come back. And then the nurses couldn't have been nicer, and we had this incredible, I want to say half hour, 40 minutes of just sitting in a chair holding him, and it was amazing. And it was whatever will be, and we're going to take each curveball as it comes. But it was incredible. I still get all to think about that day. It was incredible.
Not to make you more emotional, but you touched on something that I think we should highlight for a minute. We do live in a world, in a space within the adoption community, when folks, are entering the process and waiting in the profile book, very excited. Obviously, you have to make good decisions and thoughtful decisions about what you are and are not comfortable with. You did mention that Ben, had some medical complications at birth, and I can imagine there was a lot of layers to that of what you were not comfortable with. You ultimately said yes. But sometimes I feel like folks get so focused on the medical, the smaller things, and you touched on the bigger picture of just you wanted to hold that baby and move forward, and you were almost willing to accept whatever risks came with that. Can you give some advice for folks who may be considering more of a medically complicated situation and it's overwhelming? You're being given limited information, you have this email with some info on there, doctors are throwing terms at you that probably have no idea what most of this is. What advice would you give for folks who may be considering it, and just the bigger picture now that you're 7 years later?
Wow.
I wish Ben was a long list of so there was a lot of research that we were doing prior to meeting Ben.
Yeah.
I remember trying to look up everything. We're like, what is this? What's that? The other thing with us, when they told us the medical issues, I just, I don't know, I think our hearts were just open to, as soon as we heard about Ben, and I don't even think we even thought about it. We're like, this is a child that we're gonna get to love and start our family with. And then whatever issues were, like, I don't know, for me, I didn't even think about it. I didn't think twice about it. I didn't dwell on it. I was just so excited that we were chosen and picked, and I don't know, get Jacquelyn.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I was gonna say, everything, all the reports were a what if.
Yeah, and it was a what
nothing
if.
was confirmed, so it was like we were open because I guess it was like our moment of bravery. And again, I think we can't speak for other couples, but because of our journey, it led us to Ben, and we were very open, and he is this incredible little boy, and we're so grateful. So if we had said no to the what ifs or panicked about it, then we wouldn't have the son that we have today. So it's so hard, and every adoption is so unique and different. But I do remember we were so ready to parent that we were willing to just say, whatever comes our way, we're gonna take with stride and just do what we need to do for this little boy. And I think that's where our brain was at that time.
Yeah.
And again, it didn't, like, we were both like, yes, when we first learned about him, but it did, you're going in your brain and you start to do the what ifs too. And I'm not gonna say they didn't happen and that's scared, but I think with everything that we had experienced, it was, I keep saying he was our greatest yes. Mm-hmm. He really was.
And I think it helped that we did talk it over about everything. Because like we would have concerns, and then either Jacquelyn would stop me, be like, well, we can handle that, or Jacquelyn would be concerned about something, I'd be like, Jack, we'll be fine, like it'll be okay. We don't know what the issues are yet. I was like, but whatever comes up, we take that next challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
And to be fair to our son, he is... They weren't sure if he was going to walk. He can walk. They weren't sure if he was going to talk. He can talk. There's so many things, and we had wonderful support networks, and he was in the NICU for a while, and we had therapists, and he had OT, PT. There were so many people along the way, because this little baby, he is this little thing that has this journey to go to. So, I say, don't be afraid, especially if your heart's in the right place and this is what you want to do and And then I just say, just be willing to make adjustments, to know that you're not going to know everything and that you have to learn. I think one of the biggest things was the NG tube. We had to learn how to put a feeding tube in. And that was like, I felt like I almost all of a sudden, I was like, I never wanted to be a nurse. And now I feel like I'm a little bit of a nurse, like going through that class. And we had to be able to put the NG tube in them before leaving the hospital. That was really scary and nerve-wracking. So there's just, it's a roller coaster, but I don't know. We didn't want to limit, and we're so glad we didn't, because we're very fortunate. So I think every couple just has to take it in stride and really have those serious conversations and make sure you're on the same page with each other, because it takes a team, and it's, life is hard, marriage is hard, and parenting is hard. Yeah. So you got to have each other's back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what it's like to be a transracial family for you. I know you have the background of being a teacher and education and things like that, but what life is like for you today, what you want folks to know, maybe how to help prepare other families who are considering this, and the realities of all that you live every day.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning with Ben, it was more of the medical side that we were concerned about. And then I think as he got older, I want to say around 1, we started to be like, whoa, we really got to pay more attention to this now, because, I think we're very fortunate in the time that we live in, with the world that we live in, that there are so many resources out there. And I think parents who are willing to do the work and unlearn some things that we've learned along the way, and also learn wonderful things for our son is real important. So I think I think I said to Craig that your journey as a transracial adoptive parent, you as a parent question yourself all the time of, am I making the right decision for my child? Am I doing it? And then I think as a transracial adoptive parent, there's like 10 to 20 other questions that you ask above all the regular ones that happen. Just because you want, is this a great opportunity for my son? Will this environment be diverse? Is this a good person that I want in his life that will help him, you know? And also always knowing that there's a piece of Craig and myself that doesn't benefit Ben because of our experiences and our culture and our upbringing, that we always have to reach out and be reliant on the village to be like, hey, you know, this happened and can you help us? Can you guide us? What should we do? So just being willing to say, I don't know, and ask for help is really important, I think, as transracial adoptive parents.
And then it makes you, when you start to learn all those things, it does make you more vocal, even with your own immediate family who may not understand your position as a family. But I always see it as a great opportunity to celebrate like our diversity, especially in our family and our transracial family, and explain to our immediate family members and our brothers and sisters and our son's uncles, and like, it's, you know, he's different than mommy and daddy, and it should be celebrated. Like, you know, and we try to support Ben that way too, as much as possible.
Yeah. It's kind of like a little gift.
Yeah, it is.
But then it's also a lot of work. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. And I appreciate you guys being honest about those moments, because I think you have to let your pride down as a parent in general, but then as an adopted parent, and then as a transracial adopted parent. And you really hit on important factors of making sure that you're willing to unlearn some of the things that you may have learned, because that's hard for people to admit. There's a lot of worry and shame and embarrassment of like, what is that going to mean for me, my family? Yeah. So to say that because you clearly care about your son and you want what's best for him, that takes a lot of courage to admit that. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to share with our community about your experience as adoptive parents, the agency, anything else that you would like people to know?
Well, the agency is great. Yeah. So if you're adopting, this is a great agency to be a part of.
We had experiences with another agency, and like I said, your professionalism, all the social workers are so knowledgeable, and I think the beautiful thing about Adoptions from the Heart is that it's not a one and done deal. You don't have your placement and then see you later. Yeah. You know, there's so many opportunities that you invite everyone back in for the support, for the camaraderie, for the celebration, like
we love the picnic every year.
So I feel like that's one thing I always say positive about the agency, is that you don't just have your placement and you leave and that's it. And the beauty of the openness too, of just staying, keeping that connection, because it's so important for the kids.
Continue to talk and communicate to each other with your loved one, and really be honest with each other about what you're open to. Yeah. And there's no shame to say like, well, I'm not really open to that, you know, because ultimately you have to remember that you're going to be inviting this child into your home, and you want to be open to him or her. Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
Wonderful. Wonderfully said. Well, we appreciate you guys. You know, it's helpful that folks can hear directly from you as you've been through it, and I feel like there's a lot of layers to your story, and we're hopeful that will help some folks out there who are trying to navigate this world of adoption and building families. So thank you very much. We appreciate your story.
Thank you for having us.
Continue to tune in to future episodes here at Adoptions from the Heart TV.